Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have a guest that will be sharing their badassery. And I gotta tell you, I'm a little starstruck over this guest, everyone. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is how to create an effective accountability group. Because I'm my own boss, there are times where I need a little kick in the ass. Studies show that people who write down their goals are 42% more likely to achieve those goals. It jumps to 78% more likely to achieve those goals when you tell a friend. That is why I created my own accountability group. I reached out to people and was clear on what the purpose of the group would be. I picked people whose businesses were going in different directions. One was focused on large commercial properties funded through syndication. Another did the Burr strategy. Another did mostly wholesaling and more. At our first lunch meeting, we decided on the following 7 guidelines for our accountability members. Number 1, dates will be determined a year out to not conflict with our local RIA events. Please mark your calendar. If you cannot make a meeting, we will see you at the next one. Do not ask to change the date. Number 2, you will be added to a Skype group where you can reach out for support in between meetings. You can also share information on contractors, lenders, etc. This is an easy way to let the group know if you are late or can't attend a meeting. Skype should not be used to discuss non-related business topics. Number 3, locations will be decided by the group, but the restaurant must be conducive to a meeting atmosphere where everyone can see and hear each other. Number 4, the first few minutes of the meeting will be for catching up with each other until our orders are placed. Then we will get down to business. Number 5, we will not set a timer, but time should not run longer than 5 minutes for each person to review their previous goals, what was accomplished, and what was missed. There is no penalty for missed goals. The group is there for support only. Number 6, we will then spend time writing down 3 goals for the next 2 weeks. It can be an open discussion format to have others suggest action items to help achieve those goals. And finally, number 7, once everyone has announced their goals and action items for the next 2 weeks, we will then determine the next meeting location, and the meeting will then adjourn. So, by deciding on guidelines together as a group, expectations are set, and we commit to support each other. While all of us are friends, our accountability group is strictly business. I have been meeting bi-weekly with this group for almost 3 years. Typical goals we share are business-related, like getting another property under contract, updating time blocking, to hiring a new general contractor. The group is great at providing suggestions for action items to help achieve those goals. By keeping each other accountable, we have enjoyed watching our businesses grow. Now, on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us someone who I consider a celebrity in the real estate investment world. I am so excited to have Ryan Burk, better known as RyGuy. So welcome to the show, RyGuy. Yay!
Hi, Jen. How
Hello.
are you?
I am a little nervous to have you on here because you are the man. So thank you so much for your time. It's very valuable. And I know you are going to lay down some serious content for my listeners. But first, I want to know a little bit more about you. Where are you from? How'd you get into real estate? All that fun stuff.
Cool. Cool. Well, definitely thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to link up with you. And yeah, so where am I from? I am from Southern California, but I currently, for the last decade of my life, I live up in Northern California in the Bay Area, Sonoma County, up in wine country. So it's absolutely gorgeous up here.
I
And
enjoy a glass of wine, so that is fabulous.
oh,
Yes.
I do enjoy a glass of wine myself. In fact, we are going to be planting a vineyard on our property here pretty soon, so that's always exciting. And we're just farmers. We're just farmers up here growing our own stuff. So that's just kind of to add to it as well.
That is
So that's really
awesome.
cool. Yeah.
So, how'd you get involved in real estate?
So I got involved in real estate. I got involved in real estate in 2006. I was working 70 plus hours a week for someone else, building someone else's dream, making someone else very wealthy, and feeling extremely unappreciated by the day. And I worked for that organization and in that industry for years, for about 12 years. The good news was that's where I met my wife.
Nice.
So it was meant to be. She was actually, I was her boss at the time, kind of a funny story. She was looking for a promotion. So the rest is history. No, I'm just kidding. But that is how we met. And, we were just talking, and as we started masterminding and seeing our future together, we started talking about how much we hated that someone else owned our days and someone else owned our time, and how we're committing all these hours to making someone else wealthy and building their dream. And so we started thinking about, how could we replace our income? How could we build ourselves out of this job and replace our income? And right around that time, my wife had met someone who was a real estate investor and had multiple real estate investing transactions going on. And so as we started talking to her more and more, she let us know that, the reason that she was able to do real estate was because she was part of an organization where she went through curriculum and increased her financial education and had coaches holding her hand through processes. And so we decided that that was something that we wanted to do as well and move forward. So we dove in to the education side, and we really started increasing our financial IQ through financial education and learned all the different acquisition strategies, all the different exit strategies. And we started doing real estate part-time. And, we didn't have a lot of time because we were working 70 hours a week.
What industry were you in?
I was actually in the timeshare industry. So I was in timeshare industry, and I was overseeing the sales department, and I made it to the point by the time I walked away, I was the regional director of sales for Southern California. So I was overseeing about 300 salespeople in timeshare, which is like just this huge crock pot of adult babysitting. I was always in human resources dealing with things that had nothing to do with me, but I had to take it on the chin just because, I was at the top of that organization and those were my salespeople. So it was very fast paced, very stressful, lots of quotas, lots of budgets, all of that stuff.
So then you got into this education program and you guys dove in, and I am a huge believer in education. My husband and I, when we got into real estate, we had no real estate background. At least you came from, something that was of the real estate industry. We had zero, and we joined an educational program. That's where I first learned of you. And in fact, I was looking through a book today, and your picture was in the book for this education program. And I was like, oh my goodness. So anyway, it's very important because when you are in an education program, you learn from other people's mistakes so that you don't ever make them. And it's just made our business so much better. And people think, well, I don't need to spend thousands of dollars to do it. It has saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars because we had that education. So very valuable. And that's how I found you, is because you are a total badass educator. And I just look up to you. I have done some coaching. I'm doing some more coaching now with you through the Tarek El Moussa HomeSchooled group. And I learn something new from you every day. But one topic I would love for you to share with my listeners is how to protect your your assets,
Mm.
which is protecting your ass basically. And re-listening through different modules that you've done talking about asset protection, why is it important to not buy anything in your name? What is the point of that?
So that's actually a really good question. And before I dive in, I just want to clarify to everyone and let everyone know that I'm not an attorney and I'm not an accountant and I'm also not a financial advisor. So obviously any of the stuff that we talk about today, you shouldn't mistake it as tax, legal, financial advice, right? All I'm going to do is really just teach you at a very high level what's been taught to me over the years when it comes to something like asset protection, right? Tax strategies and things like this.
And you should always seek professional advice from your financial advisor. But yes, relearning this stuff through you and hearing all this, you are just so good at it. And I begged you to be on the show because I'm like, my listeners need to hear this. So let's dive in. All right. So let's talk about why you should never buy real estate in your name.
Yes. So first of all, the whole idea is when it comes to assets, you always want to think of personal and business, right? So if you're starting to get into real estate investing or you're already in real estate investing, you're in business, right? And so if you're doing business in your personal name, that means you're a sole proprietor. And if you're a sole proprietor, the IRS absolutely loves you because you're in the highest tax bracket that basically exists. So number one, why would we not want to do business in our name? Well, because we're in the highest tax bracket and there's specific types of entities that we can leverage and use to reduce the tax liability that we would have every year on the income that we're making in real estate. And then above and beyond actual tax strategies, again, we want to keep everything separate, personal and business. So let me just give you an example. And I think this example will really paint a good picture as to why someone wouldn't want to do anything in their name business-wise. So let's say you were in real estate and you're a sole proprietor, you're doing business in your name, and you get into a car accident. And you rear end someone, for example, and now they decide to sue you, right? Well, what's going to happen is when someone sues, there's a dispute, that individual's attorney is going to research who they have a problem with. And if you're the one that got in the car accident, they have a problem with you. And now the attorney is going to research everything that you personally own that they could name in a lawsuit to be able to take from you. And if you're doing business in your name, then they can name your business. Even though your business had nothing to do with that car accident, they can name your business in that lawsuit and they could, in essence, take that business, or they could put judgments against future income if you had deals closing in that business, things like that. It goes the other way as well, right? So maybe you're in business and maybe a contractor is, climbing up a ladder to do a roof with a nail gun, and the nail gun goes off in their knee and they fall off a ladder. Ask me how I know that can happen.
Ouch.
And ultimately now, so if they decide to sue, who do they have a problem with? They have a problem with who hired them. Well, it's you in your personal name. And so now they're going to not just try to come after your business, but now they're going to come after all your personal assets as well, your personal residence, your car, your bank accounts, things like this. So what we would want to do is we would want to keep everything separate. We would want to keep business and personal separate, and then we can use entities. We can use something called a corporate veil to limit what someone could take from us in a worst case scenario. And that's basically what it comes down to. It's asset protection is define your nightmare and then start structuring around it. What is the absolute worst case scenario that you feel could happen, and start building a structure to where you limit what someone would take. So for example, if I operate in an LLC, that's a limited liability company, okay, that doesn't mean I'm bulletproof. That doesn't mean I can't get sued and people can't take anything from me. But ultimately what it would mean is if there was a dispute between my LLC and someone else, then they would have to sue my LLC, and they would only be able to name and go after any of the assets that that specific LLC owned. So if I own multiple assets and I'm structured in a way where they're in multiple entities with different names, now I'm limiting what someone could take from me in a worst case scenario.
So you mentioned before that if you buy anything in your name, it's because you are a sole proprietor.
Yes.
Then you mentioned LLC. So what is best for what type of business, and how does it help you not only in asset protection, but in tax savings?
Got it. Yeah, that's a great question. And by the way, this is not a one size fits all approach. That's why we always recommend, you know what, you want to speak with someone that understands these things, that can look at your specific situation and build something custom around it. The biggest challenge though, Jen, is most people have no idea where to find these type of individuals that know what I'm covering. And the reason is because they don't know the information themselves. They've never increased their financial IQ and financial education and learned it themselves. So they can't do a proper interview because they don't know what questions to ask to see how much someone knows, to see, should I pay this individual a fee to give me advice in this area or this area? Because I think it's important to point out that just because someone has a license in something doesn't mean they're good at it. Right. And doesn't mean they study it at an extremely high level. So people always say, RyGuy, you know, what kind of entity should I set up? Because you have companies and you have corporations, right? You can have an LLC, that's a company. You can have an S corporation. You can have a C corporation, right? Things like this. Now, when it comes to entities, they all provide what's called a corporate veil. So the corporate veil separates you personally from your business and your business from you personally. The way I kind of like to imagine it and explain it is, imagine if you were in business, Jen, and then you had like 20 dudes that were like pure muscle, 250 pounds standing in front of you, and every single one of them was named Guido. Basically, someone would have to get through all the Guidos in order to actually get to you. And the odds of them being able to do that are extremely low. So all entities provide a corporate veil. So they will provide the same asset protection, other than certain states have stronger veil piercing laws than other states, but they all provide the same asset protection. The difference in these entities is how they get taxed. So for example, with an LLC, when someone sets up an LLC, they have 75 days from the day they set up that LLC to choose how they want it to be taxed. Do they want it to be taxed as an S Corp, a C Corp, a sole proprietor, a partnership, right? Things like this. And if they don't choose within those 75 days, their window of choosing is over. And then every year that they do their tax return, a lot of people don't know this because the IRS is never going to call you and tell you, oh, you could be saving way more money and not have to pay us this much money. But every year you do your taxes, it gets turned in and they see, oh, this is an LLC. They never chose how they wanted to be taxed. So they choose for you, and they choose sole proprietor every single year. Yeah. So that puts you in the highest tax bracket. So it depends on what type of income that you're earning, because active ordinary income, that's income that we trade time for, that's taxed at the highest bracket because you have federal taxes. And then if you live in a state that you have state taxes, you have state taxes. And then you also have what's called FICA tax, Social Security and Medicare, right? Self-employment tax, 15.3%. So you have to pay 15.3% on that income that's earned before you pay state and federal as a sole proprietor. And that's why when you combine all those taxes together, your tax bracket goes up dramatically.
And that FICA one, that's an F word that I don't like. So
correct.
Yes.
Correct. No one likes it. Now we always have to pay it. However, with an S corporation, an LLC is made up of members, and an S corporation is made up of employees and shareholders. So for example, if you are the owner of the S Corp and you're employer and employee, the IRS says you have to pay yourself a reasonable salary. So you would W-2 yourself. So let's say that there was $100,000 earned for the year. Well, most savvy tax professionals that understand this stuff would say a reasonable salary would be about 30% of the total income. So I've earned 100 grand through the company, the S Corp, and then I would pay myself 30,000 as a W-2. So that would be my W-2 salary. And the remaining $70,000 would be a distribution to the shareholders, which in my case is my trust. My trust owns 100% of the shares of the organization. Well, here's where the tax strategy comes in. The IRS says that you have to pay FICA tax, 15.3%. You have to pay that on the salary that you paid yourself, but you pay zero FICA on the distribution.
Oh.
So in an LLC, if you never chose how you wanted it to be taxed and you earned 100 grand, you're going to pay $15,300 in FICA tax. But with an S Corp, you're only paying FICA on 30,000. So that's 4,590. So the difference between the two is about $11,000 just because you understand the difference in how entities get taxed. So just to sum it up, on 100,000 earned through an LLC that's taxed as a sole proprietor, you're paying 15.3%, $15,300 in FICA tax. But on an S Corp, same money earned, you're paying 4,590. So that's a savings of 11 grand right there. So here's the easiest way to sum it up and remember it. LLC starts with the letter L. So any income that's considered long-term, passive income, a lot of people don't know this. If you have income coming from rental assets that's paying you, that income is not subject to FICA tax. You don't have to pay FICA on any of your passive income. So you can just run it through an LLC, right? LLC starts with the letter L. So anything that's considered long-term income, L, could be through an LLC. But if it's short-term income, right? Short-term income, what that means is that it's going to be subject to FICA. So short-term S should be taxed as an S Corp. So you can have an LLC and you can elect to tax it as an S Corp within those 75 days and get the best of both worlds.
You want to do your fix and flips in the short term, correct?
Correct. If I'm doing a fix and flip business, then yeah, that's considered short-term income because a flip is really defined as something that takes a year or less, right? You get it on and off the books in 1 year or less. But anything that would be considered long-term that I'm holding, then I wouldn't want to put it into an S Corp or elect to tax it as an S Corp because now I would have to pay FICA tax on income that's not subject to FICA to begin with.
So for some of the listeners out there, this is fantastic for those who are just starting out and they're going to set this up correctly. What about people who have already been doing this business and did not pay like we did for our education? Can they go back and change these things? The structure?
So that's something that they would want to talk to their accountant about. And by the way, here's what I always tell everyone. If you're working with an accountant and you're making, over $50,000 a year, and that accountant has never suggested to you the S Corp election, it's absolutely nothing personal, but it may be time to upgrade. It may be time to actually find someone who understands these things because God forbid your accountant actually strategizes with you and helps you save money instead of just processing paperwork.
I sleep with my accountant, by the way.
That's very smart of you.
My husband's my accountant.
Smart. I know, it's very smart of you. So you get a nice reduction in tax liability, don't you?
So you mentioned something called a trust. And when I rewatched some of your educational material, you said that everything goes into your trust because you don't want to own anything, but you control everything. Mm-hmm. And it's because it's protected through this trust. Vance and I have not set up a trust yet. So how would we go doing that? And I know several of my listeners are like, holy shit, I don't have a trust either. So what's the best way to structure it? And again, and I know we should go through our financial person for this, but just give us a quick idea of how we should go about setting this up.
Okay. So first of all, so there's certain types of trust that some people would say could lend to asset protection, but trusts are not really a vehicle that's designed for asset protection. They're more designed for estate planning when you pass, right? See, because a trust does not provide a veil. It doesn't provide a corporate veil. It's still you. So if someone sues the trust, they're still in essence going to be suing you, right? If they can figure out who owns that specific trust. So a trust is more set up for estate planning. So a lot of people, they don't have a trust set up. And when they pass away, everything gets left and goes through probate, which creates all this additional emotional stress. And it also creates all these additional fees that they wouldn't have to leave their heirs with if they had some estate planning education and structured themselves properly for something like that, right? So for example, let's say that someone passed away and they had between their equity and some houses, maybe some cars, some bank accounts, life insurance policy, whatever it was, they had about $1 million in assets, in net worth that's being left to their heirs, but they don't have a trust. So now that's all going to go through probate. And I don't know about you, but I've seen probate literally rip families apart, create greed. I mean, it's a pretty sad process. And so what happens is a probate attorney typically, from my experience, charges a minimum of 5% of the net worth left. So if there's $1 million net worth, that's 50 grand, bam, wow, right off the bat. If you have a trust, then there is no probate process. There's a will that is in conjunction with the trust that gives specific instructions as to how you want everything to be dispersed. And ultimately, now you're not hiring a probate attorney. You're not creating this unneeded stress. Okay. Also, a lot of people, this is kind of scary. A lot of people don't realize this. And this can't happen. If you have kids that are under 18 and you pass, even if you have a will that says, my sister's going to take care of my kids and this and that. Well, I've seen this happen where Child Protective Services comes in and takes the kids and puts them into foster care until probate is complete. Wow. And as you know, probate can take a while. So for me, it was a no-brainer to set up a trust. You can set up a trust for a couple grand or less with an estate planning attorney. And then, like I said, I don't own anything, but I control and make decisions on everything. So I have companies owned by companies that are owned by a trust. So if anyone ever tried to sue me, their attorney would be like, this RyGuy character, he's like a Johnny Lunch Bucket. I wouldn't sue him. He's got nothing we can take. And they might say, oh, well, he's an investor. I know he has all these assets. Well, first of all, we don't know where his assets are. And second of all, we don't have a problem with his assets. We have a problem with this entity that you did business with. So that's what we have to sue.
Well, this is just so important and just a teeny tiny aspect of things that I have learned from you. And I know you are part of an education program. Can you tell the listeners how they can learn even more from you? And I hope to have you on like 1,000 more times on the show, because I just love when you drop your content. It's crazy awesome. So how can my listeners get more from you?
So there's a couple different ways. First of all, if anyone wants to follow me on Instagram, my handle is @RyGuy Burk, RYGUY Burk. Right? @RyGuy Burk. They can always follow. And that's
Burk without an E, BURK.
Yep. BURK. Yep. So I also work hand in hand with Tariq El Moussa. So for those of you that don't know who he is, you probably should crawl out from underneath a rock. No, I'm just kidding. But if you're interested in real estate or real estate investing, most people know who he is because he's been on HGTV for over a decade. He's on the show Flip or Flop. He also has Flipping 101. And his passion, he got to where he is today because of coaching. I got to where I am today because of coaching and high level financial education.
Can I talk really quick about that, the 101? Because
Sure.
my favorite part about that show, which makes it so realistic, is how he has the countdown of what the interest is, or it's a count up of what you're paying in interest each day the project continues. And so I'm just a huge fan of that show just because it's so realistic. I digress, but I just had to throw that out there because that's my favorite part.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point too, because a lot of people, like you said, they watch these shows on HGTV and all of a sudden they go, oh, I'm going to be a house flipper. This is easy. I get paid in a half hour. Doesn't work that way.
Nope.
Right? It's nothing like you would see on an actual show. In fact, I always laugh because, that would be like watching 2 seasons of ER and then telling your friend, oh, don't go to the doctor. I'll do that brain surgery on you. I got you covered. I'm an expert in this stuff. Right. And so it's funny, though, that you bring that up because a lot of people, most people in this industry, I'll just be straight up, they're amateurs.
Yep.
They're all amateurs and they're all speculators. They're not true investors. They don't have a high financial IQ. They don't understand economies. They don't understand property cycles. They don't understand any of this stuff. And that's what's interesting because people always say there's so much competition and this and that. There actually really isn't. When you weed out the amateurs and you just look at the professionals, there's not that many professionals in the industry. And the professionals have focused on their education and they focused on creating standard operating procedures and proven systems and checklists. And they operate a real estate transaction just like an assembly line. And that's what we do at Homeschooled by Tarek. So we got together and we decided we want to create the biggest, baddest, coolest, like family feeling real estate investing education company that has ever existed. And so what we do is we do classes, Saturday classes occasionally, and they're called the Basic Essentials Crash Course. And it's actually kind of crazy because it's 6 hours of high level financial education for $97. I always say it's less than a sushi bill, right? To go increase your financial IQ. And what we teach is really, it's the essentials, right? What are the essential foundational concepts of being a real estate investor? Well, we sum it up to the 4 F's. Find it. So marketing at an extremely high level. And I'm not talking about using realtors in the MLS. There's nothing wrong with that, but those are always going to be the skinniest deals with the most competition. We're talking about learning how to target motivated and distressed private sellers, learning how to acquire properties that they're not listed, right? They've never been listed. Okay, then from there, you got to learn how to analyze deals. You've got to learn how to do a back of napkin analysis and be able to do a quick analysis and in 10 minutes or less, make offers. Okay, then the second F is find it, right? Or sorry, fund it. Fund it. Yeah. So we spend a couple hours at a very high level teaching creative financing and teaching you strategies that myself and Tarek are currently using in this market to 100% finance our real estate transactions. That's what we do. One of the biggest things I learned early on this financial education journey and studying extremely successful house flippers and extremely successful and wealthy investors is they all do it the same way. They invest as if they're broke. They invest as if they have no money. What does that mean? That means they use other people's money. Right? They're using other people's money and turning it into more money. So what's unique about that concept for a lot of people that don't realize is whether you have money or not, you can do this. If you're broke, you can do this because someone who has millions of dollars still buys transactions like they're broke using other people's money, right? So we show you some really cool creative financing strategies, how to do seller finance notes where the seller can turn into the bank and finance your transaction, how to do a subject to transaction where you buy a property subject to the existing mortgage that's already in place in the seller's name. You just take over their mortgage payments. We talk a lot about hard money lenders. These are lenders that are in the business to lend to people flipping houses. We talk about private money lenders, And this is big. A lot of people don't realize that they're surrounded by money. A private lender is someone that doesn't know they're a lender until you show them, hey, you're a lender. You don't have financial education. Your money's sitting in the bank earning 0.25%, which, by the way, we're printing so much money so fast. Inflation's at about 3% a year. So if people are keeping their money in the bank at 0.25% and inflation's going up 3% a year, that's called the law of diminishing returns. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that they will never get financially ahead ever, because no matter how hard they work, no matter how much they save, the Federal Reserve will just print money faster than you can do that. And they're going to always be able to devalue your bank account and buy you back for free.
And no one saves their way to financial success. No one does. And by the way, what does a typical private money lender make on their money?
So that depends, and that's kind of where you want to learn these things, and you want to learn how to do a presentation to a private money lender. So for me, one of the very first questions I'm going to ask someone, because basically a private money lender is showing someone, hey, take your money out of the bank and put it into a deal with me, and I'll show you how to get a way higher and better rate of return than you're currently getting now, and your money will be insured and secured and backed by real estate. Unlike the stock market, your money's not insured and it's not secured. So for me personally, one of the things that I'm going to find out when I'm interviewing a private money lender is I'm going to ask them, what rate of return are you currently used to earning on your money right now? What do your current investments look like? For a lot of people, they're not investing, and all they have is a bank account or a CD at 1.25%. So if I offer them 5%, that's over a 5 times greater return than they're currently earning on their money. For me, most of my private lenders earn around 10%. That's pretty typical. They earn a 10% annualized rate of return on their money. So watch this. If someone has 100 grand sitting in a bank at 0.25% over 6 months, they're going to earn about $125 on their money. But if they put it into a deal, they're going to be listed as a loss payee on my insurance policy. So if the house catches on fire, burns to the ground, they're going to get a check, right? So their money's insured. They're also going to get a first or second lien position, depending on how much money they gave. So that's going to be through a mortgage deed or deed of trust. And these individuals, they're making over a 10 times greater return on their money than they're currently used to making. So what we always talk about is, a lot of people go, well, I don't know anyone that has money, or who's going to lend me money? Well, here's the challenge. And I know I'm allowed to cuss because you cuss all the time. Here's the challenge. That's a shitty question to ask yourself.
Right.
The brain is a search engine. It's designed to give you answers. And if you ask yourself shitty questions, you will give yourself shitty answers all day. Yep. If you ask yourself good questions, you will give yourself good answers all day. So instead of saying, well, who's going to lend me money? Oh, well, no one's going to lend you money because you suck and you're a failure, and you come from a long line of failures, and everyone in your family is a failure. And that's kind of what the brain does, right? It's that negative self-talk versus once I know what I'm doing, once I have good curriculum, I have financial IQ, I have good coaches holding my hand through processes, who do I know that would potentially be interested in getting over a 10 times greater return on their money than they're currently getting right now if they had faith that I knew what I was doing and I could actually pay them back and present them supporting evidence on why this is a good transaction? Now that's a better question, because now the brain's just saying, well, Johnny, he's a dentist and he probably has a savings account, and Mary, she probably has a this or that. So ultimately, private money lenders can be very powerful to fuel your business. And what happens is you're actually allowing them to make returns that they've never made before. So they need you more than you need them. I always say all these consumers out there that have no financial education, their money needs my deals.
Yep.
Without my deals, they're stuck at that desk job. They're not going to get ahead.
I have to do this. Cha-ching. That was so worth it. And I would love to have you back on the show and just talk about private money, because that's crazy. So we're only on the second F. So find it, fund
So
it. What's the third
find it,
F?
fund it, fix it.
Okay.
So that's the rehabbing process. So Tarek has a repeatable fix and flip system that we go through. And that's really basically, we call it McDonaldizing a transaction. How do you take a transaction and turn it into an assembly line where it's all based on phases, steps, standard operating procedures, and checklist? See, because once you operate that way, no matter what the price point is, no matter what the market is, no matter where it is, no matter who the operator is, probability for success will always be high as long as someone's operating through the same standard operating procedures, right? So you've got fix it. And then, of course, the last F is flip it, sell it, get it off the books. How do you exit out? So acquisition is how you get in. Exit is how you get out. And so that's a powerful class. And that is, if anyone's interested in taking that class for less than $100, it's www.tarekscrashcourse.com. Maybe you can put that in the show notes.
I will definitely.
tarekscrashcourse.com, TAREKS crashcourse.com.
And I'm telling you, the way how you all drop knowledge in just 6 hours, it is worth so much more than that. So,
Oh yeah. And here's what I can tell you guys. Like, I've been extremely fortunate over the years, and trust me, I'm extremely grateful for where I am and the wealth that I've been able to create and how I've set up my family, because I barely graduated high school. I never went to college. Like, literally, I'm just a surf bro from California that grew up on the beaches. All I ever wanted to do was surf. That's all. I mean, that's kind of my lifestyle. So how did I go from barely graduating high school, never going to college, taking every math class twice, always in summer school, feeling like I was not very intelligent, to a scenario where I've been able to do all these transactions, raise millions of dollars, and have all these assets? And really, I'll just tell you, my secret to success is I'm literally just the best copycat that I know. Like, I don't take credit for where I am or what I have. It's all been taught to me at a high level by classes like that and one-on-one mentors over the years. And I've implemented to get to where I am today, period. That's it. I'm just the best copycat that I know. And ultimately, I would recommend the same for you guys. If you want to get good at something, all you have to do is train and condition and practice. And ultimately, if you do it enough, you'll get better. But you want to make sure you're practicing and training and conditioning with someone that's already in a position that you're seeking to be in. I see it all the time at the gym. You've got these people that are out of shape and they're personal trainers in worse shape than they are. and they wonder why they can't get into shape. There's no social proof. There's no vision, right? So what you want to do is you want to find someone who's in a position that you're in. If you want to learn how to do real estate and do it at a high level and make significant income where you can have lifestyle by design, then you want to find someone who's already in that position that's willing to teach you how to do it and how to keep it. And then all you got to do is follow direction and do it, period.
Well, I think it provides success to so many people. So thank you for sharing all that. The second part, I want to get a little deeper in a couple of things here. The second part of the podcast, I want to find out why you, RyGuy, Ryan Burk with no E, what makes you a badass? So the first B, it's an acronym, is book. I want to know a book that's made a huge difference in your life.
So that's a good question. And so I go, this is a touchy topic for me, because it's not going to be a real estate investing book because and the reason is because when it comes to real estate investing, there's education and there's implementation, right? Those are the two components and they're both equally as important. Here's the thing though, there's no risk in the education. All the risk is in the implementation. All the money is made or lost in the implementation. So if the author would give you their phone number, and you could actually call them and get access to information on demand when you needed it, then I would be a bigger believer in real estate investing books. But those books are kind of just dangerous in my opinion, especially if you're motivated and confident and a self-starter, because there's a difference between the education side and the implementation side. The books aren't going to help you from an implementation standpoint. That's why I believe in one-on-one mentors and live curriculum. But in order to be a successful investor or a successful father or a successful husband or wife or friend or whatever it is, it's all about mindset, right? It's all about mindset and elevating yourself to that next level and really cultivating the investor mindset, because most people are raised by consumers to be consumers, and they are taught consumer strategies their whole life, and they grow up as adults implementing, and they get consumer results, and they want investor results, but they've been taking advice from consumers their whole life, and they wonder why they can't get investor results. So the biggest thing is, cultivating that investor mindset and changing your teacher. Right? If you want to be an investor, you have to stop taking financial advice from consumers, and you have to start taking financial advice from actual investors that are doing it. So for me, from a mindset standpoint, a book that has changed my life in a very big way, and this is probably going to be kind of random, but so one of my favorite books is called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari.
I knew you were going to say that. I heard you talk about this book before. I love it.
The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. That's a really good book. Also, by the same author, Robin Sharma, The Saint, the Surfer, and the CEO. They all have different mindsets. How do you take the mindset of like a high-level CEO in New York, but add like the relaxed surfer vibe, but also have trust and faith, like a saint? How do you add all of that together in business? So those are two really, really powerful books that have been very life-changing for me mentally, mindset-wise. Our brain is the most prime piece of real estate that we'll ever own.
That's true.
Right?
So the next one is an A, and it's advice. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
The best piece of advice I have ever received? Oh, man. One of the best pieces of advice that I've received and am reminded of over and over again, because it came from my wife, so it's awesome, is, just don't take life so freaking serious.
Right.
It doesn't have to be that serious. You don't have to be that judgmental. You don't have to put so much pressure on yourself, right? To do all these things, right? That exist in the physical reality, right? The physical reality. There's a physical reality and there's a metaphysical reality. And so for me, understanding that the universe is mental. The universe is mental, and the universe is always eavesdropping on your thoughts and giving you exactly what you're asking for, whether you realize it or not. And you know what else is eavesdropping on your thoughts? All your cells and all your organs. And most people don't realize, and Western medicine's never going to tell you this stuff because there's no money in the cure. There's only money in treating a symptom. But, most people's diseases start out from thoughts as well, because again, your cells and organs and all of these things are eavesdropping on your thoughts. And if you really were to be conscious about your thoughts, because most people don't realize we have about 60,000 thoughts a day, but how many of them do you remember? For most of us, and this is what I realized about myself, and I had to do a lot of work around it and excavating it, my thoughts were a bully. My thoughts were always bullying me and putting so much pressure and just not treating me the best and being very negative. And like I said, the universe, your cells, your organs, all of those things, they're all eavesdropping on your thoughts and giving you exactly what you want. So I would say the universe is mental, and, we don't have to take life so serious. That would be some really good advice that has been given to me over the years.
I love it. And we had the connection one time when you mentioned angel numbers, and I'm like, oh my gosh, who is this guy? Because I see my numbers are 444. I see them all the time. And then he mentioned it, and he sees 222s and stuff. And so now, like, whenever I see a 444, I'm like, daggone it, RyGuy, you did it again. All right. The D in badass is drive. What drives you to be successful?
So what drives me to be successful is I know 100% that I was not put on this planet to be a big badass real estate investor, and that's it. I know that. I know that I've been put on this planet, and my purpose is to help spread positive messages and help raise the vibration of the collective of humanity to get us closer towards evolvement, right? To get us all closer towards enlightenment. So for me, the more success, quote unquote, I've experienced in real estate or in the education space, the more people I get to get in front of. The more relationships I create with people that are extremely wealthy, that have large communities that I partner up with, all of a sudden I get to spread messages to thousands of people. And I've been very blessed over the last decade to be able to spread messages above and beyond real estate investing to thousands upon thousands of people. So that's what drives me to be successful, is to continue to see, because it's very superficial. The more successful you are, quote unquote, the more big people with big audiences are going to know who you are and give you an opportunity to get in front of their audiences. So that's what drives me to keep going and keep creating that physical, superficial type of success, is it allows me to create the relationships and be known to get in front of larger groups of individual and help spread positive messages and raise vibration in any way that I can.
Well, I am one of those recipients, and I'm truly grateful for having you come into my life. So I do appreciate that very much. The second A in badass is aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are personally working on?
So a goal that, so again, it's like there's so many different areas, right? Like in which area is a good question, right? But so for me, I'm constantly, one of my main goals is I'm constantly just doing work. I'm constantly excavating and doing shadow work and realizing a lot of these things and these programs that aren't even mine. In essence, I inherited them. I inherited them before I was old enough to think for myself. And really just, that they're not serving me, right? So my goal is just to continue to be consciously aware of my thoughts and my programs and be vulnerable and set an example for men that what we've been taught as society as a true man is actually the opposite of what I think a true man is, right? Holding our emotions in, keeping it to ourselves, not asking for help, and all these things. For me, I think my goal is to help spread that message even more, especially to men, that vulnerability is key. And you're only coming from one of two spaces in life. It's either going to be coming from fear or love. Really, anything that you can think of, thoughts, programs, the way you operate, it's either coming from fear or it's coming from love. It's either coming from a high vibration or a low vibration. And I think it's important for everyone to understand that love will win every single time, big picture, and fear will lose every single time. So a goal for me is really like to always try to put myself on check, and whatever action I'm about to take or whatever I'm about to say, is that coming from the highest part of my being or the lowest part of my being, especially when I'm triggered and I'm upset, right? So what's the next thing? Am I going to come from a place of fear, or am I going to come from a place of love? And that's really one of my main aspirations and goals every single day. From a professional standpoint, one of our biggest goals right now is to get into assisted living and starting to acquire assisted living facilities. From a real estate investing standpoint, the cash flow is insane. And the amount of people that you get to help in their golden years through nutrition and all kinds of really cool things that people don't talk about that can extend lives. That's something that we're really passionate about as well. So that's one of our new goals.
I love that. I just think that's such a great industry to get into, and so much to help other people. My mom is looking for a place to live, by the way. So if you want to open your first one in Raleigh, I would be very appreciative. The first S in badass is systems. And I know, because you are a badass, you have got to have some great systems in place. So what do you have in place that helps you to achieve success?
So that's all. So for me, I look at it all. I call it like wealth quadrants, right? There's so many different quadrants, and ultimately you can be wealthy financially. You can be wealthy in your waistline. You can be wealthy in your nutrition. not in your calories, in your nutrition, right? Our country is full on calories and starved of nutrients, and we're just dying off and we're getting sick, and we have more disease than we've ever had, right? And all of these different things. You can be wealthy in your soul, you can be wealthy in your mind. So for me, it's really just about trying to create balance, doing my best to create balance in all of those different areas, and trying to consciously be aware of not leaning too hard into one of the wealth quadrants, and really focusing on all of the wealth quadrants to try to create that balance, right? Because people always look at wealth as money, how much money you have. And some people are so poor that all they have is money and they don't have anything else, right?
Wow.
So that's really what it is for me.
The last S in badass is success. And this is where I want to hear, what does success mean to RyGuy?
So success, and that kind of goes back to systems. Like, what systems do you have in place, right? So, and that lead to my success, right? Success is happiness. That's success. Like, it's not money. I continue to want to say that it's not money. Money's not even real. We live in a fiat currency system where we use fake money. It's a ledger system that's going down in value by the second, right? So for me, success is happiness, and figuring out ways that I can be happy regardless of my financial situation or my romantic situation or my parenting situation or my this or my that. So to me, success is having systems that make you happy. For me, it's my non-negotiables. So I'm extremely focused on nutrients and minerals. So that's success to me, is making sure that I get all those nutrients and superfoods and minerals every single day. Working out, so exercising. I do a lot of yoga. I do a lot of meditation. So all of these things, to me, success is a collective of all of these things that I do on a daily basis to collectively keep my vibration high, and raising my vibration to a frequency to where whatever it is I'm seeking is a vibrational match to what I'm thinking. And a lot of people don't realize, like, just the foods that we put in our body and the liquids and all of these things, it's actually driving down our vibration, and it's making our vibration pretty low. And when your vibration is low, you're, in essence, you can't critically think, and your level of consciousness is low as well. So for me, to be successful financially, really, it's all about having a higher level of consciousness. So how do you create that higher level of consciousness? You raise your vibration. How do you raise your vibration? By what you're feeding your mind, by what you're feeding your body, right? By what you're feeding all of these different things. So for me, that success, it has nothing to do with money to me.
Well, I appreciate you feeding my audience with all of this massive content. And I'd love to have you back on the show again and talk about using private money lenders, using other people's money. I'd love for you to talk about rentals and having that passive income. But before my listeners can even hear that, they can find you every other Saturday, correct? So one more time.
Right now we're doing, that's kind of how it's working out. Every other Saturday at tarkscrashcourse.com, 6 hours of high level financial education taught by myself. And Tark also hops on for about an hour. So there's a live Q&A with Tark, and it's on Zoom. So it's kind of cool because you get to turn your camera on, and ultimately you get to, you turn the camera on and you get to, like, just ask him questions directly, which is really powerful.
Well, I appreciate you very much for your time. And this has been just an hour full of just great stuff to get people started by picking their entities, doing it properly, and then totally covering their assets. And I just am truly grateful for you. So thank you, RyGuy. And that is all. Thank you for listening. We will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.